You're standing in front of your bathroom mirror. It's 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. You've got toothpaste on your chin and your phone in your hand, and you're staring at your bank app like it owes you an explanation. Rent just came out, your car payment hit, and that number staring back at you. That's supposed to last until next Friday. You do the math in your head. You always do the math in your head. Can I make it? What if something breaks? What if I need gas before payday? You're 32 years old. Or maybe 36. Maybe 41. And somewhere in the back of your mind there's this voice that says, I thought I'd be further along by now. Here's what I want you to understand. That voice, that feeling of being behind, it's not because you're bad with money. It's not because you didn't pick the right major or didn't negotiate hard enough at your first job. It's because there are invisible choices happening inside your head every single day. Choices you don't even realize you're making. And those choices are keeping you stuck. I'm not talking about lattes. I'm not talking about avocado toast. I'm talking about something much deeper. I'm talking about the hidden mindset traps that keep otherwise smart, hardworking people broke well into their 30s and beyond. And once you see these traps for what they are, once you really understand how your own brain has been working against you, everything starts to shift. So let me show you what's really going on. I spend a lot of time thinking about money and financial psychology, not in some abstract, academic way, but in a practical, real-life way, because I've seen what happens when people finally crack this code. They stop treading water. They start making progress. And it's not because they suddenly got a huge raise or won the lottery. It's because they changed how they think. If this kind of content helps you see money differently, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more people find these videos, and honestly, it helps me keep making them. Alright, let's get into it. There's a story we tell ourselves about being broke in your 30s. The story goes something like this. You're behind because of student loans, or because wages haven't kept up with costs, or because you just haven't gotten your big break yet. And look, some of that is true. The math is genuinely harder than it was for previous generations. Housing costs more, healthcare costs more, everything costs more. But here's what's interesting. Survey after survey shows that being broke isn't just about how much money you make. According to research from financial institutions like Lending Club, nearly 73% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck. That's the highest of any generation. And here's the thing, this includes people earning well over $100,000 a year. More than 40% of people making six figures still report living paycheck to paycheck. So if high income doesn't solve the problem, what does? What actually separates people who stay stuck from people who build momentum isn't primarily about income. It's about mindset. It's about the stories you tell yourself about money and the invisible decisions you make because of those stories. Let me give you some examples. There are 3 phrases that keep people broke, and if you're honest with yourself, you've probably said at least one of them in the last year. The first one is, I'll catch up later. Maybe you're thinking that when you get a raise, you'll start saving. When you pay off this one thing, you'll get serious about building an emergency fund. When things calm down, you'll finally tackle your finances. But here's the truth. Later almost never comes. Because when you do get that raise, your expenses tend to rise to match it. When you do pay off that one thing, something else takes its place. Waiting for the perfect moment to start is a trap, because the perfect moment doesn't exist. The second phrase is, I deserve this. And look, you probably do deserve it. You work hard. Life is stressful. You should be able to enjoy yourself. But this phrase becomes dangerous when it's the justification for every purchase that keeps you stuck. The new phone when your old one still works. The nicer apartment when the cheaper one would have been fine. The restaurant meal when groceries are at home. Each one feels small in the moment. Each one feels earned. But add them up over months and years, and they represent tens of thousands of dollars that could have changed your entire financial trajectory. The third phrase is, everyone else is doing it. You see your coworker's new car, your friend's vacation photos, your neighbor's renovated kitchen, and some part of your brain says, well, if they can afford it, I should be able to afford it too. But here's what you don't see. You don't see their credit card statements. You don't see their stress at 3 in the morning. You don't see that many of them are drowning too. Comparison is a trap because you're comparing your full financial reality to everyone else's highlight reel. Now let me tell you what's actually happening in your brain when you're broke. When you don't have any financial cushion, when you're constantly worried about making it to the next paycheck, Your brain enters what researchers call a scarcity mindset. This isn't some self-help buzzword. This is well documented in behavioral economics and psychology. Studies from researchers like Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir have shown that when you're operating in scarcity, your brain literally works differently. The scarcity mindset creates what they call tunneling. Your attention narrows. You become hyper-focused on the immediate problem, the bill that's due, the payment that's late, getting through this week. And while that tunneling might help you solve the urgent crisis, it comes at a huge cost. You lose bandwidth for everything else. Long-term planning goes out the window. Good decisions become harder to make. You're more likely to make impulsive choices, take on high-interest debt, and miss opportunities that could help you get ahead. Think about it like this. When your house is on fire, you don't stop to plan your retirement. You don't research the best investment strategies. You just try to put out the fire. And for a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, the house is always a little bit on fire. But here's what's interesting. Research from major institutions suggests that having even a small amount of savings fundamentally changes this equation. A study from Vanguard surveyed more than 12,000 investors and found that having just $2,000 in emergency savings was associated with a 21% increase in financial well-being. That's not $200,000. That's $2,000. That relatively small cushion was more predictive of financial well-being than having $1 million in assets or earning $500,000 a year. Why? Because when you have that cushion, your brain can finally relax. You stop operating in crisis mode. You stop making decisions from a place of desperation. And when your brain isn't constantly firefighting, it can start making better decisions. It can start seeing opportunities instead of just threats. People without emergency savings spend on average more than 7 hours per week thinking about and dealing with their finances. People with at least $2,000 saved, they spend less than 4 hours. That's almost 2 fewer hours every single week freed up for actually living your life. So here's what I want you to understand. The goal isn't just to have more money. The goal is to cross a threshold that changes how your brain operates. To get from survival mode into growth mode. And that threshold is closer than you think. Let me show you the math. Say you make $50,000 a year. After taxes, that's roughly $3,800 a month. Now, the average new car payment in America right now is around $749 per month. That's 20% of your take-home pay, gone, just for transportation. Add insurance, gas, and maintenance, and you're looking at close to $1,000 monthly just to get around. Now imagine a different choice. You buy a reliable used car with cash, or you finance a much cheaper vehicle with a payment of $300 instead of $750. You just freed up $450 every month. That's $5,400 a year. In just under 4.5 months, you'd have that $2,000 emergency fund that research shows can transform your financial well-being. But here's where it gets really interesting. Once you have that cushion, once your brain shifts out of scarcity mode, building momentum becomes easier. Let's say you keep saving that $450 a month. After 2 years, you have about $11,000 saved. After 3 years, you're over $16,000. And if you start investing even at a modest historical average return of around 7% after inflation, that money starts growing on its own. This is the power of compound growth, and it's the reason why starting is so important. The first $20,000 is the hardest. It takes the longest. It requires the most discipline. But once you have it, something magical happens. Your money starts doing some of the work for you. Each dollar you save and invest is like a tiny employee working around the clock. Let me give you a real example. If you invest $400 a month starting at age 30, and you earn an average return of around 7% after inflation, by age 50 you'll have roughly $200,000. But here's what's wild. You only contributed $96,000 of that. The other 100,000 plus came from compound growth. Your money literally made money. But if you wait until age 40 to start, you'd have to save almost double that amount each month to reach the same goal. Time is your greatest asset, and every year you spend stuck in the paycheck to paycheck cycle is a year of compounding you don't get back. Now I want to be clear here. I'm not promising specific returns. Markets go up and markets go down. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But the historical patterns show that patient, long-term investing in diversified funds has consistently built wealth over time. The point isn't to chase some specific number. The point is to understand that the math changes dramatically once you stop treading water and start building. Here's what most people miss about building financial stability. The real win isn't the money itself. It's the person you become while building it. Think about what you have to do to save your first $10,000 or $20,000. You have to track where your money is going. You have to say no to some things you want in the moment. You have to stay consistent month after month, even when it's boring, even when it's hard. You have to delay gratification, which is one of the most important skills for success in almost any area of life. By the time you hit that milestone, you're not the same person you were when you started. You've proven to yourself that you can control your money instead of letting it control you. You've built habits and discipline that carry over into every other area. You've developed what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you can affect your own outcomes. This is why lottery winners so often end up broke again. They get the money without the identity shift. The habits don't match the bank balance. But when you build wealth slowly, the habits come first. And those habits are what actually keep you wealthy. I talk a lot about that $20,000 milestone because it represents something important. It's roughly 6 months of expenses for the average American. It's enough to handle most emergencies without going into debt. It's enough that your brain can finally stop operating in crisis mode. But more than that, reaching it proves that you have what it takes to keep going. Once you cross that threshold, something shifts in how you see the world. Before, every unexpected expense was a crisis. A car repair, a medical bill, a job loss. These things didn't just cost money, they threatened your entire stability. You dealt with them from a place of desperation, often taking on high-interest debt or sacrificing other important goals. After, these things become problems instead of emergencies. Your furnace breaks, and you write a check. You lose your job, and you have 6 months to find another one without panicking. You see an opportunity, a certification program, a conference that could advance your career, and you can actually take it. This is the difference between being on offense and being on defense. When you're always in defense mode, you're just trying to survive. When you have a cushion, you can play offense. You can take calculated risks. You can invest in yourself. You can say no to bad opportunities because you're not desperate for any opportunity. And that changes everything, including your career. Think about what happens in your job when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Your boss asks you to work overtime. Again. You say yes because you need the money. Your company treats you poorly. You put up with it because you can't afford to lose this job. Someone offers you a better opportunity, but it requires a short-term pay cut or a risky move. You can't take it because you have no runway. Now think about what happens when you have savings. Suddenly, you have what some people call walk-away money. Not enough to retire, but enough that you're not trapped. Enough that you can negotiate from a position of strength instead of desperation. This affects everything. Studies show that people who feel financially secure negotiate better salaries. They ask for raises more often. They're more likely to take the smart career risks that lead to advancement. And because they're not stressed about money every waking moment, they often perform better at their jobs. It becomes a positive feedback loop. Better financial position leads to better career choices, which leads to better income, which leads to an even better financial position. But it starts with that first shift, with getting your head above water so you can finally see where you're going. Have you ever noticed how every time you get a little ahead, something comes along to knock you back down? That's not just bad luck. It's often a pattern, and it has a name: lifestyle creep. Here's how it usually goes. You get a raise. Great, more money. But instead of saving the difference, you upgrade. Better apartment, newer car, more dinners out. Within a few months, your expenses have risen to match your income, and you're right back where you started. According to research from major banks, middle-aged households, particularly millennials and Gen X, have been spending nearly all of their earnings on necessities and lifestyle costs. They're on a hedonic treadmill, running faster but getting nowhere. The worst part is, it feels so reasonable in the moment. You worked hard for this raise. You deserve to enjoy it. And you do. But there's a smarter way to enjoy it. What if you kept your lifestyle the same and saved the difference? What if every raise was split? Half to enjoy now and half to secure your future. The other big trap is treating savings milestones as spending rewards. You hit $10,000 in savings, so you celebrate with a vacation that costs $3,000. You finally pay off your car, so you finance a new one. You reach a goal, so you move the goalpost back. I'm not saying you should never enjoy your money. That's not the point of any of this. The point is to be intentional, to make sure that short-term pleasures aren't sabotaging your long-term freedom. Because here's the opportunity cost that nobody talks about. That $50,000 car you buy at 32, if you bought a $20,000 car instead and invested the difference, That $30,000 could turn into over $230,000 by the time you're 60. That's not just a car versus no car. That's potentially years of early retirement versus working until you're old. Every big spending decision is also an investment decision in disguise. So what should you actually do? Let me give you a framework that actually works. First, build a starter emergency fund. Just $1,000. I know that might sound like a lot if you're starting from zero, but it's reachable faster than you think. Cut one unnecessary subscription. Skip eating out for a few weeks. Sell something you don't use. Get that first 1,000 in place so you have a tiny buffer between you and disaster. Second, get clear on where your money is going. You don't need a complicated budget. Just track everything for 1 month. Every coffee, every subscription, every impulse buy. Most people are shocked by what they find. When you see where the leaks are, you can start plugging them. Third, automate your savings. Pay yourself first. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to a separate savings account on the same day you get paid. If you never see the money, you won't miss it. Start small if you have to. $50 a paycheck, $100, whatever you can manage. Then, increase it every time you get a raise. Fourth, focus on the big wins, not the small stuff. Yes, small expenses add up over time, but the decisions that really move the needle are housing, transportation, and income. If you can keep your rent under 30% of your take-home pay, drive a reliable but modest car, and steadily increase your earnings over time, you'll be ahead of 90% of people. Fifth, protect your progress. Once you start building savings, guard it fiercely. That emergency fund is not for a great deal on a TV. It's not for a vacation you really want. It's for actual emergencies. Car breaks down, job loss, medical expense. Everything else can wait. And finally, keep going. The hardest part is the beginning. The first $2,000 feels impossible. The first $10,000 feels like it takes forever. But it gets easier. The math starts working in your favor. And one day you'll look at your bank account and realize that you're not just surviving anymore. You're building something. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Being broke in your 30s isn't about whether you're smart or hardworking or deserving. Most of the people struggling financially are all of those things. It's about the invisible mindset traps that keep you stuck in survival mode, making decisions from a place of scarcity instead of strength. The I'll catch up later mentality that guarantees you never start. The I deserve this justification that bleeds away your potential. The comparison game that keeps you chasing other people's standards instead of building your own freedom. But here's the good news. These are traps you can escape, not by earning a fortune or getting lucky, but by understanding what's really happening and making different choices. By building that first cushion, even if it's just $2,000, and letting your brain finally shift out of crisis mode. By proving to yourself that you can control your money so that it stops controlling you. You have more power here than you think, and every day you wait is a day of compounding you don't get back. I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me, what's one money decision from your past that you'd redo if you could? What's one mindset trap that's been holding you back? Let's have a real conversation about this. If this video helped you see money differently, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. I make these videos because I genuinely want to help people build financial freedom, and your engagement helps this reach more people who need to hear it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.